Now, getting on to our main event for being here is to learn from our friends and neighbors. And this week we have SunShine Gardner from the Ely Adventure School. He is the founder, director, and lead teacher of the Ely Adventure School, and just submitted his curriculum and got the highest possible score on the curriculum that he designed and is teaching at Ely Adventure School. So we are thankful. Welcome, SunShine, and let's learn from him.
Hello. Oh, it is on. Awesome. Yes, my name is SunShine. My real name is Benjamin Perry Gardner, but no one calls me that anymore. I have a master's in education, specifically with early childhood education outside. And I was asked to speak about my curriculum, and I can rant about education forever. So I was trying to figure out what I want to talk about today. And so mostly what I'm going to talk about is the main goals that cover what I do when I teach and work with children, and how I think that applies to everyone and what we can do specifically about learning. If you're interested more in my curriculum, it's on the nitty gritty bits and details, like the word for word what it says. My website has it on there. You can go to my website, elyadventureschool.org, and you can find my curriculum underneath the tab labeled curriculum. And you can read all about that. And I'd love to have anyone ask me questions via email or catch me on the street or phone number, stuff like that. Also, I mostly teach children. So for me to be able to speak uninterrupted for half an hour is unheard of. So it would make me less uncomfortable if you had a question just to raise your hand or blurt it out. You know, like if I can speak for a minute, that's pretty good sometimes. So if you have a question about something, let me know. I would love to answer it whenever it comes up. And also at the end, I'll have time for questions as well. And for the most part, the presentation is just a bunch of pictures. Yes, Elton, what do you got? Who gave you my nickname and why? I've got long blonde hair. And there's a movie called Remember the Titans. Maybe you heard it, Denzel Washington. It's about football. There's a kid in it, sometimes called Sunshine. That was when I was 14. Sweet. So there are three things that I believe are critical for us to learn. This is everyone, specifically children I work with, but everyone in general. And you have to be interested in what's happening, what's going on. You have to be able to recognize some sort of control you have in the situation, and you have to be able to reflect on that effectively. That makes sense. We got to be interested. You got to have some sort of control you can recognize, and you have to be able to reflect effectively. And you'd be amazed at how many times we try to teach kids or adults stuff when they're just not interested. And I feel like, any one of us can think of times when we are like, don't care. And so we're not going to learn, we're not interested in doing it. We have no desire to go after it. And which is one of the reasons why at my school, I love being outside. As many of us know, you can find endless opportunities outside. We do a ton of child-driven exploration and sort of let their own wonder lead them where they're going. Sometimes it's by themselves. Sometimes it's with groups. Oftentimes it's with just social interactions with each other. I often tell people at my school, I teach social interactions, social skills. And most of that is because kids are interested specifically in what being a human is, what being a person is. That's really what they're trying to figure out. Who here played like house as a kid, or school, or like restaurant, or whatever, any of those things, like it's a thing called dramatic play, which is critical for children and for everyone. But it is really getting down in the business of like figuring out what is a person, like what is a job, what do adults do, what do people do. It's a really neat part because kids will make mistakes. That's a great part of learning. We want them to be interested in something. They're interested in what being a person is, what their parents do, what their friends do, what I'm doing, what some random stranger who stopped by at the school to check our propane is doing. Like, they're interested in what we're doing. And then they take it and they make it their own. They bring it into games they bring it into any bit of discovery they're doing or whatnot. So being interested is a critical aspect of it. And what constantly astonishes me about that idea of being interested is that I don't think anyone would dispute that. Maybe someone out there is really ready to go toe to toe with me on that one, saying you don't have to be interested to learn. But I think it's really important. And then knowing that, how often we try to teach children things they're not interested in. Whether it's just the wrong time, whether it's like, well, it's time to do art, so we're doing art right now. It's like, no, maybe they don't want to do art right now. Maybe they're like, I don't want to paint right now. Or maybe you're outside and you're running around playing the game, and one kid's got their fingers in the mud drawing designs now. That's great. Now they're excited about doing some art, and they're excited about getting in the mud and whatnot. So it's really creating a space to let kids' interests guide what they're learning, and then also is my job and the other teachers there to help kids think about figure out where they can get some of the benefit out of what they're interested in. A big part of that is also going to be the second thing. So the first part is being interested. The second part is being able to recognize some sort of control. And I first thought about this concept when I was in my master's program because one of my professors questioned me on something that I thought was fact. Who here has heard of the comfort zone model of education? Okay, great, cool. I will briefly explain it. The comfort zone model is a style of education that a lot of different organizations, specifically outdoor education and outdoor leadership programs, work with, where we have kind of like a target-shaped circle here. I should have had a design, but whatever. And in the middle circle is where our comfort zone is. That's what we're comfortable doing, like going, like, hopefully it's all the things we do in our regular life, like making breakfast, getting up, going for a walk, all that kind of stuff. And as you get farther out towards the edge, you reach an area where, like, hey, you're a little less comfortable doing this. Like, for me, over the past couple of years, I've been learning how to run whitewater in a canoe, which has been a lot of fun. And I've done a lot of canoeing. It's been a lot of fun for me. But I'm learning more about that. And so that's a little bit more of like a thing that sometimes requires more effort for me, and sometimes it's scary. But if you go too far past that like what they call the learning zone, then you're into a panic zone and you're no longer able to learn. It's too scary or too much. That's where people get hurt often and have accidents. And so I was talking about this with my professor, and she told me, is like, well, there's no research out there saying that we learn when we're uncomfortable. We only learn when we're comfortable. And so I did a lot of thinking about this, and I was like, well, I don't know if I really believe that. I've made a living so far leading canoe trips, leading wilderness trips, and there's a lot of times you're uncomfortable out there. And like, no one has been comfortable if it's been raining for 2 days straight and your lunch got wet and your sleeping bag's wet, and maybe you're standing at the end of a portage and you're knee deep in mud. You're like, no one's that comfortable with that. How do we become comfortable with that? What I determined is that what's important is being able to recognize some sort of control you have in the situation. So for me, in a situation where it's been raining a bunch, and maybe I know, like, I have a warm jacket I can put on later, or I know I can put my hood up and have it rain in my eyes. Or with kids here in the summer, when it's really, really buggy, they know they can put on a head net. I help them think about things that they can find ways they can get control. They can go in the bug tent. They can set up a hammock if they're feeling really sleepy and take a rest. They can, if they're excited about playing with someone else, I give them the tools to help ask another friend, hey, can I play with you? And if that friend says no, we've also talked about how to address that, how to work through that. Like, okay, maybe I can find someone else then. If we have some friends who are really interested and excited about whatever they're finding, maybe it's in a cool stump, and they want to show everyone, then we teach them not only how to, like, get everyone's attention, but also how to then make sure that it's not swarmed and, like, what they're trying to show us gets destroyed because too many people are excited about it. Like, how we can give expectations to others, even in the moment when we're really excited about something. And so this type of control, I think, is extremely important for children. There's so many times when children get no choices whatsoever, and adults get no choices whatsoever. maybe we have to have a job that we don't really like as much, but it pays the bills. For kids, oftentimes they're like, you're going here, I'm leaving you here and I'm picking you up later. Or really anything. You don't really choose what they get to eat all that often, like maybe they don't want to eat broccoli for dinner. Maybe they do, who knows? So many times their choices are just made for them. We, as educators at Ely Adventure School, try our best to give them options and choices. And some of those choices and options are really, they're not super obvious. One of the things we work on helping every child learn how to zip up their jackets, put on their boots, put on their snow pants, put on their mittens, put on their hat. And that in a way gives a lot of control and choice to a child. That means that if they want to go outside, they can do it. They can get their stuff on. They're not waiting for me. They're not waiting for someone else to help them. They can tell themselves, I now have some control over my life. And it's amazing how many kids, I've got everyone at my school right now can get all the winter layers on. And I got 3, 4, 5-year-olds. Not all of them can tie their shoes, but it doesn't matter. Most of them have slip-ons. So, but they can do zippers, They can even troubleshoot when the zipper gets stuck. They can identify well, you know what? I'm going to give up on this jacket and borrow one of the other jackets I know I can zip up. It gives them the option of choice and lets them have some control they can recognize. So even in a situation where I'm asking them to share things, I'm asking them to think critically about different problems that they're running into. And I'm asking them to notice things around them, whether it's the icicles that are forming right now, or the quality of the ice on the lake, or if we're trying to find more maple trees to tap for sap. They can do those things because they know that they have the ability to do all sorts of things, such as they can get themselves dressed and ready. They can run back inside and go to the bathroom if they need to. They can feel comfortable climbing and jumping over rocks, they can trust themselves in doing that, which is a huge part of what is their age range that I work with. Yeah. The age range of kids I work with is ages 2 years and 9 months up to 10 years old. In the school year, I work with preschool age, which is 2 years and 9 months to 5 or 6. Yeah, so almost all the kids here are going to be between ages 3 and 5-ish, maybe 3 and 6. And it's just fun. I let kids climb things. We have some certain rules at Ely Adventure School that help kids even have some more of this control they know. So one of the rules is I don't help kids climb things. They have to climb up themselves and they have to climb down themselves. And that is really makes a lot of sense to children. Oh, I can't climb up it, so that's fine. And sometimes it's frustrating, and oftentimes they work a whole lot harder to get up there and climb up there. But also they know they have to climb down, so they're not putting themselves in spots that's too scary, really. There is one exception I've had with the helping kids down. I had a little girl in a cool onesie with a hood on it, and she was sliding on something, got a hood caught, and it was just hanging there. And she asked me to help her down. I said, hey, I can help you. And I turned around and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll help you. Just stuck there. But for the most part, they also understand the exceptions too. Like another kid could say, hey, you don't help us climb down, but someone else might be like, well, she was stuck. She was really stuck, and it's kind of, how do you teach an exception to a rule or something that everyone understands and gets along with? It just happens. And the last thing that I look at and think about is, how do I help kids effectively reflect on what they're doing? And this is a really hard step, because it requires you to have been interested in what you're doing, because you want to think about it some more. It requires you to have been able to recognize some sort of control you had in the situation, like something you could have done differently, or something you did that you liked, or something that happened there. And effectively reflecting means that you are thinking about those things that you did, thinking about the choices you had or choices that you made, or maybe you didn't, thinking about the fact that you didn't make any of those choices, you were kind of stuck for a second and you just did something, allowing you to be able to do that, and then realizing next time I can do the same thing, I can do something different, I can make a different choice, I can have something happen, and you can guess what's going to happen with that outcome. And so a lot of times what this looks like is I ask children to tell me what happened, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing or whatever feedback is happening. So like if a couple kids stick a stick in the ground, pull it back, and it gets launched and flies in the air, that's pretty cool. All of a sudden, we got this stick flying through the air, and everyone's like, whoa, that was awesome. And then I was like, how did that work? Let's talk about it and think about it. And so then we're taking a second to think about what's going on there. Why did the stick not break? Oh, it's bendy, or how did it fly? Like, I don't know how it flew. Let's go try it again. And now we're thinking about it again and again, and we're getting at this motion of like being able to be like, oh, I can make this choice. I can do this thing. And then maybe it's like, hey, that stick flew really far. Maybe we have to make sure that no one's in front of it when we're doing this. Maybe you only learn that when you hit someone. I don't know, but hopefully you can help them think about that beforehand. At the same time, if someone is making a choice that is negatively affecting others, oftentimes the thing they want to do least is think about what they did. The worst punishment I give any children at my school is have them tell me what they did that hurt someone else or was wrong. Kids hate that. Adults hate it too. Everyone hates that. No one wants to explain in detail what happened and what they could have done better, especially when they know what they could have done. And I found that I almost never have to repeat that process more than once or twice with a kid. Having that, like sitting down with them, hey, look, I saw that happen. Like, what do you think happened? Let's talk about it and think about it. Almost never does it have to happen again. And I feel pretty lucky with that. And part of it is because I've had a number of kids who've gone through that over the years. And so they realize, oh yeah, that's what's happening. And sometimes when you're doing that, other kids are really curious what's going on. They're like, oh, what happened? And oftentimes I'll ask them to ask the kid who I'm talking to what happened, and then they'll have to explain. And it works really well for helping them actively and effectively reflect on what was going on, what they were doing, what they were thinking, what could have been done better, or how they could change that in the future. Now, I've talked a whole lot about being interested in something, being able to recognize some sort of control, and being able to effectively reflect on things. And for me, that's what encompasses what learning is, like what we should learn. And I think another question that I asked myself at the end of this process, when I was coming up with my educational theory here about learning, was what is the point of learning? And for me, and what I try to teach at the Adventure School, is the point of learning is to thrive. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it, with whatever group you're in, the point of learning is to be able to thrive, and not just get through each day, but like to be like, I'm genuinely excited about what I'm doing. I'm learning new things, I'm trying new things, I'm going forward, having a great time, and realizing that like sometimes not everything's going great, and in those moments, remembering that like, hey, I can control some things in my life. I'm still interested in doing some things, and I'm able to think about what those things are, those choices I make are, and keep on going forward and keep on going through. I'm sure I have a few more pictures left. I don't know how long I've spoken here. Hopefully not too long. Yes, what do you got? Oh, nice. The question was about injuries. So this is my 5th or 6th year doing the Ely Adventure School. I've had 3 incidents. That means an incident report is a formal thing I've written up. I've had countless scrapes. Like who knows how many bruises, or whatnot. But very, very few injuries. One of the injuries we had was some kid fell and slipped and hit their head on a rock and got stitches. 2 other injuries were also slippery and wet, and they fell and hit their heads as well. But injuries just happen a lot less when a kid asks me, hey, can I climb this? And I say, yeah, go for it. Go for it. You go for it. And then they realize that they're doing it, and I'm not helping them do it. I'm not pushing them in a spot that's too challenging. Or if they realize like, oh, everyone else is doing this thing this way, I may want to try something different. And then they say, oh, I see why everyone else is doing it this way or whatnot. They just don't happen very often. And honestly, I make jokes about it, but some of the most dangerous things I think I have at the school are these little tiny blue chairs inside that I have more kids fall off those hard and like, oh no, than like outside. Mm-hmm.
Have children with disabilities?
Yes, it depends on how you define what disabilities you're talking about. I get a lot of children, especially in the summer camp program, who are on specific learning plans at the schools they go to in the school year, for a number of reasons. I've worked with a child in my program who had a bunch of spinal issues as well. She had a hard time walking, but could. And I feel a part of the program that I really enjoy and what I think we do really well is we're able to individually curate our program to each child, what they need, what's going on. And because we're a learning community and we're focusing on the things that we can do and whatnot, all the kids understand that and work together to help everyone else out. So one of my greatest, a hilarious memory from a couple summers ago was I had 3 kids, all of which had trouble communicating. One kid had cochlear implants, so hearing was a hard thing, and she knew it, and she would sometimes play it up that she couldn't hear you, but she could. I had another kid who communication in general was just challenging, mostly because he got too worked up and frustrated about it. And another kid who had some other sort of learning difference, and I don't really know what it was. He only came for a couple of weeks, but also had some communication challenges. And at one point, all 3 of these kids were playing together with the little cars in the dirt, and they were all screaming at each other, top of their lungs. But they were still playing, and I was like, all right. So I guess as far as like disabilities, I mostly have worked with like learning disabilities or whatnot. I haven't had too many. Yeah, that's what it is. That's your question there.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, I have to applaud you for taking this on. Are you familiar with Martha Gerber and Montessori?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Because this very much reminds me of that. And I'd love, to your point, about the children and all of the things that you're teaching are applicable to adults and so needed, I think, right now. So I just want to thank you for stepping out and doing that. Great job.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
Got the link.
Sort of a similar question. Why did you stop at 6-year-olds and not have 7, 8, or 9?
The question was, why did I stop at 6-year-olds? So in the state of Minnesota, a preschool age is 2 years and 9 months to the year before kindergarten. And so that's about 6-ish-year-olds. Now, that isn't really hard and fast, but that's just sort of like the Minnesota policies. And so I am a licensed childcare, which sort of blurs the line between childcare and preschool. There's a whole lot of garbage and policies I can talk about with like whys and whats, but I do have a variance for school age children as well. So that's how I can extend and have a wider age range, which does work, which is fun.
I just wanted to ask you, during summer and other times during the year as well, if as a grandmother, I have grandchildren that come here and stay for a week or 2 weeks, do you have something where the children could come to your school for a week or 2 weeks and be like a drop-in type thing, or not really?
I do mostly want to serve the local community. I definitely do have drop-ins though. That being said, my summer is pretty booked already. And maybe even overbooked. I was getting nervous about that earlier this week. I was like, oh boy. But I would say likely I will have openings. I just don't know. Like right now, it doesn't look like I do. And so asking me throughout the summer is a great way to do it. Because sometimes, I have 30 kids saying or 30 families saying they're sending their kids, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And only 20 show up. And then we got room. I try to keep it around 1 to 10. And that is also Minnesota state policy. 1 to 10 is a great ratio. It works well. Oftentimes it's less than that, just based on what's going on. I recently hired another lead teacher, and I'm really excited about working with her. That's why I'm able to be here today. She's with the kids right now. And hopefully it's going all great. I think it will be.
You could design classes for adults. It would be very helpful for adults to understand the learning process for kids and how they learn. And it would be very helpful to a parent as far as how they could encourage the curiosity of their children.
I would happily do so. Most of the time adults don't like when I try to teach them because I treat them like children. But I would happily do so. I think it's something I've been thinking about how I can share more educational and learning philosophies effectively. So, yeah.
So, among your staff, are there some who have been with you for a long time? Do you have turnover problems? Is it hard to keep staff?
The biggest problem for me for the past few years has been just trying to grow my program, figure out how to be both an administrator and a lead teacher every single day, and make that work. And get more families excited and working there. I run a program that's my own program, and recently we've become accredited by the organization in Minnesota that credits quality of child care programs, which we did receive the highest accreditation. So that was really nice. And we are licensed child care, which has been happening, but getting more families. So part of the 1 to 10 ratio is how can I make a business that stays above water financially, and if I hire another staff member before I need them, maybe all of a sudden I might lose too much. But like I said, I have another employee now. I got a lot more kids, which is great. So I'm able to keep, I have now full year-round employees, myself and Audrey as well. In the summer, I've had return staff every summer, which has been great. Amy's come back. This is going to be her 4th summer with me. So
To jump in on the end of that, on these last 2 questions, I have read your curriculum and I warned you I was going to ask about some of this, but I think you should share with everybody the literacy and numeracy skills that you do teach throughout the day embedded into your philosophy of play forward learning.
Do you have specific ones you want me to talk about?
Specific for early alphabet and phonics and the early numeracy counting skills.
All right. Jess is excited about these ones, clearly, and I think they're great. I think they're awesome. But for the most part, I don't believe in academics in preschool. They're not necessary. Great if your kid knows the days of weeks when they're 3. Awesome. Whatever. If I ask them about what happened yesterday and they can't tell me, doesn't matter. Another thing is some children are just really excited about letters or numbers, and they're just already ready to go. I have some 3 and 4-year-olds who are already going after it right now, which is great. And we talk about that when it comes up. But as far as understanding what's going on with the letters and numbers, I wait once again for kids to be interested in it. And once they're interested in it, then we can talk specifically more about how these sounds sound in our mouth, work or look with, and we also can think about numbers in a way that isn't just like a 1 to 1 on a page, Maybe in the fall, we often organize leaves and huge, because we get all the beautiful leaves, and it's I found we got 3 orangish ones here. And we got 5 reddish ones here. And we can organize them that way and think about numbers in a way that is not looking at a sheet of paper that's just got stacks of numbers on them. Any more thoughts you're hoping for there, Jess? Or what?
No, I wanted you to highlight that because as people are talking about teaching parents play-based strategies, and the reason I get so excited about what he's written in the curriculum is because as a former teacher and a former special ed teacher, these are the strategies that parents can easily do at home too, or grandparents or whoever, but a lot of us don't know them. Any other questions?
Are you familiar with the book Summer?
Summer Hill?
Yep.
No, who's it by?
Don't remember the author, back in the 70s, but kind of your school reminds me of that. And free form, when they're ready to learn, they'll learn. We're not going to force them to learn.
Yeah, and I think with that too, like yeah, when they're ready to learn, they'll learn. But also, what I think is really neat is that kids want to learn. Like I worked with an individual, or before I worked here at my program here, I worked at a program that had school groups come up from the cities up here, and we take them out for a week and play in the woods and do all sorts of stuff, and then they'd head back down. And we'd get school groups, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And one of my coworkers had a great quote piece he would sometimes say at the beginning of each week. He'd say, now I know for the past 6 or 7 years, you've learned to hate learning. We're going to relearn that this week, and so I don't know about you all. I did not do the best when I was sitting in a box learning at school. I did best when I was running around outside. Luckily, I had mentors show me that I did actually like learning and wanted to keep learning.
Kudos to your photographer.
Well, we have plenty of time for questions, so if you have more, don't worry.
Okay, just one more example. I think as a former PTSD teacher and started a preschool years ago, I love what you're doing in trying to help parents understand there are different ways to learn. And an example, I think sometimes what I have heard was, well, are you getting them ready for school? And we had a son who went through Montessori, and the thing he liked to do most was field parrot. He was not interested in the alphabet, reading, whatever, and then he had to go to a public school where it was valued if you knew your letters and numbers. Well, he did his fine. He's president of a bank now. So
Yeah.
eventually, the school gravitate towards what they need.
I think it's a really interesting point you brought up, and this is maybe a slightly different presentation, but anyone here familiar with the word kindergarten and what it actually means? I think it translates to kids in the garden or kids in the woods in German. And that doesn't happen much anymore. But there was a movement in Europe started, I'm going to mess up the dates, but a while ago, called forest kindergartens. In Scandinavia, a country that's renowned for its education system, does this a lot, where kids are just outside all the day. And this idea gained traction over there and then came over to the United States, but then it was kind of pushed down to be nature preschools, not forest kindergartens, because most parents wanted more academics for their children in kindergarten. And you couldn't sell forest kindergarten to families. So it became nature preschools here. And even now, there's even downward creep. If you can teach a 5-year-old how to read and write, why can't you teach a 4-year-old how to read and write? That's terrible research. It doesn't work. You can't do it. Well, you can, but it's miserable. So as far as like learning goes, I think it's far more important to learn how to learn and like learning at any stage in your life. And it's going to treat you extremely well. Even right now, I feel like probably some of you know better than I do, when before calculators really came out and, like people got frustrated in math classes, and like, hey, you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. I bet we all have a calculator in our pocket right now. I bet everyone's got a calculator. So better, instead of maybe learning some of these things, let's learn how to learn. So when we reach anything new, we're ready to start there, Is that my last picture? I think it might be my last picture. Mm-hmm. question is, why do I think Americans have more of an emphasis on academics in education? Because we don't understand education. We put value on the wrong things. We value things that are irrelevant in education.
If you would like more information on that, you can talk to me after, but I will not, because I shouldn't do this, go on a rant about the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And the history of education dating back to the 50s.
Yep.
But I can tell you the answer to that. But we're not making it wonderful.
With that picture that I see. So
Happily, this was last week when we had no snow on the ground, you know. I didn't tell any kid they had to ride a bike. I actually, you can't see it right now, but there was 9 kids there and I only have 7 bikes. And so first thing we talked about was sharing the bikes, you know, instead of like, how do we do that effectively, you know? One thing you don't see here is helmets right now. I do have helmets for kids, but we were choosing that warm ears can be better than helmets. And we're intentionally talked about the fact we're going to go slow and we're going to pay attention. We're going down the hills and we're not going to go too wild with that. If I have a kid who's like, I don't want to do this, that's okay with me. That's my school right there. Up here is sort of an upper classroom area. From where I'm standing right there, I could easily see a kid from over there and they could be doing their own thing, having a good time, whatever it was, you know, or they could be anywhere else around there where they want to be. And generally they understand and know the boundaries. I sometimes try to explain the boundaries of my outdoor areas at the school. It makes more sense to children than to adults. That means that they also know when they've kind of violated those boundaries. And don't frequently do. I've been asked before if I've ever had kids try to run away. I've had one kid tell me he was doing it and looked at me the entire way down the driveway and I just stood there. He came back. So like some of those things just don't happen, you know, like one time I had kids walk a little bit too far, but they knew when they came back and they were excited to tell me, hey, we walked too far and we knew it. And so we came back and I was like, okay, great, score. One of the funny problems I have in the summer is our hill up on top of the hill there is full of raspberries and they get pretty tall. And sometimes I can lose a child sitting in a raspberry bush, but they haven't moved for like 2 hours. So I'm looking around like, where'd they go? And they're still right over there in a raspberry bush. So yeah. The question is about going outside. Yes. So my goal is to spend at least 40% of the day outside every single day. So we're open Monday through Friday. And so every single day we spend at least 40% of the day outside. When it's really cold and windy, we'll go outside for a little bit and come back in. And that's where we really get the practice on zipping zippers and putting on snow pants and putting on boots and putting on mittens. And when we go outside like 9 times in the morning, yeah, we've practiced pretty hard that then. The worst possible weather is freezing rain. No one's having fun. That's usually the biggest force. And sometimes I cheat those days and we don't outside quite as much on the freezing rain days. Just when like rain is hitting kids' faces and turning into kind of slushy ice. It's hard to convince them they're having fun.
Can you imagine?
Can I imagine having a better job? No, this is my dream job. Here I am. Yeah, no, I love it. It's awesome. And it's not always easy. And honestly, some of the parts that's the hardest are the parts that are the least fun, like the administrative side of things, or talking with the state about policies and whatnot, or talking to the IRS about nonprofits. Oh boy. But working with the kids is always great. Even when it's really hard for just a tiny little bit, it's amazing to see some improvement. The story of the children I told earlier who are all shouting at each other, it's been extremely rewarding working with them. One of those kids has consistently been challenging for every school system he's been part of, and he does the best here at the Ely Adventure School. And we have almost no problems because he's given the opportunities to be outside and move around. He knows he can go where he wants to go. He can leave the group, but still stay in sight. He can, and he also can do whatever he's interested in. You know, he loves playing with trucks. He brings some trucks. He's playing the dirt all day long, you know, and then also I can give him the time and have enough time to help him think of through things, help him learn what he's doing. And so no, I can't think of a better job. This is where I want to be.
Any other questions? Oh, my microphone died. Nope. My microphone did die.
What do you got? So that's what made me start this and what I see the future for my school. So when I was 10 years old, I went on my first Bounty Waters trip up here. And I started after that going on trips with one of the camps up here, Widgewagon. And I fell in love with the canoe trips, and I thought all my counselors were awesome, and I wanted to be a guide. So I did that. And so for many years, I worked with kids ages like 12 to like 18, leading canoe trips and backpacking trips, and had a blast with that. And so I ended up going to school for adventure education or outdoor education. And when I was there, I had the opportunity to work at a school called the Juniper Hill School for Place-Based Education. It's no longer around, but the woman who started it, his name is Ann Stiers, and she still teaches. And one of her mentors was a guy named David Sobel. And David Sobel's sort of a big name in nature preschools in the United States. And I sort of immediately fell in love with working with younger kids outside. Every issue or every challenge that you have with like an older kid, sometimes it's like, I'm so bummed that you've learned like this. Like this has been something you've learned. You know, you work with like a 16-year-old who's just like frustrated with you and doesn't like what you're asking them to do. Like they've learned that. That's okay or whatnot. And when you work with a 3 or 4-year-old, they haven't learned any of that yet. You can help them figure out like how to interact with others right out of the gate. You know, if they say something mean, it's because they're genuinely trying out this word or these things for the first time. They don't act like they're seeing what the effect it has. You know, like if they say something mean to someone else, like they're just trying it out. Just the other day, I had a kid who was really frustrated at another kid, and he's like, "You can never come over to my house ever." And I was like, "Whoa." Whoop. Like you were friends like 5 minutes ago. And so we talked about it, you know, and but he was trying out this like insult or like this thing that like, he was like, I'm really frustrated at you right now, and I don't know how to express that. So I just love working with kids right at that moment when like they're learning those things, they can do better at that. And I see, as far as the future goes, I mean, I guess I could buy a lottery ticket and hopefully have a school for kids, you know, all the way up to senior year of high school. I'd love that. Continuing to expand my preschool, continuing to provide great education, have fun doing so, and maybe make a bigger summer camp, keep getting bigger. But right now, it would be cool to have more than one program, but it's pretty scary. You know, I think a lot of times I can keep my doors open because I know I'm going to be there every single day. I haven't gotten sick for the past 5 years. I haven't taken a vacation, you know, really, in ever really. And it gets a lot harder when you start having employees, even if you really like them, even if you think they're great, even if they're awesome, like all of a sudden you're relying on someone else. Like I need you to be there. You know, I know like there's no option. I know I'm paying you a terrible salary, but I really need you to be there. And so I would like to have a bigger school, more employees, and be able to work with more children and help more families. And that is my vision. It's currently a little scary right now. I'm glad you asked. Do I just get tuition, or do I have grants and other things that help fund my school? So we are a 501c3 nonprofit public charity. Now the IRS has done some shady stuff recently with me, And but we are actually that. They just haven't updated their website, which is rude of them. I was on the phone with them a while ago on Monday. But so I do receive grants, and I receive donations. And one of two ways that sort of help fund the childcare is that I'm sure some of you may be familiar with CCAP, Child Care Assistance Programming, or assistant. Oh, that's not me.
Somebody in the hall. There's someone in the hallway doing something. Hold for 1 minute.
All right, cool. So through the state of Minnesota, that helps families. The child care system helps families afford tuition when they can't. But also there's a thing called the Great Start compensation. And I don't really know how that's funded. I think it's through the state somehow, but I apply for it every month and they give you some amount of money based on whatever information you put in there. And I haven't been able to figure out the exact math of what they do, but it's between, $300 and $700 a month, which is nice. But yes, we do accept donations.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. And I do want to highlight that the curriculum is online if you want to read it. You mentioned at the beginning. So is on the About page the video that premiered at the Ely Film Festival called Adventure School. So if you didn't get a chance to see it at the Film Fest, I highly recommend you go to the About page of the Ely Adventure School website and see it. And I do know that you'll probably be having an open house this summer, right?
Yes.
So stay tuned for details on that on likely Facebook to know when you can go out and visit the Adventure School, eat some good food, and get to know more about what happens at this wonderful place. Really, thank you so much, SunShine, for being here, and I will see you all next week for Meet More Ely.